Obsessive Compulsive Disorder and how to cope with the anxiety created by it. Any mental or emotional challenge is very difficult to live with. It's important that you're able to learn how to cope with anxiety, especially if it's OCD related. Though to be fair, coping should just be the starting point, as any tools and techniques that you learn by rights will ultimately help you to get beyond it permanently. Being afflicted with OCD, or Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, can be a life-changing and devastating anxiety disorder. And there are predominantly 4 high-level factors or criteria that best and most reliably categorize OCD. They are a compulsion for symmetry, a compulsion for cleaning, house, car, self, clothes, an obsession for acquiring or keeping things or hoarding, and finally mentally obsessing, dark or forbidden thoughts around a chosen person, thing or theme. People who suffer with OCD will often demonstrate behaviours or fears that are highly irrational and confusing. Now this creates a deeply profound unconscious inner conflict for the person, which drives an emotional intensity that can actually feed the behaviour. All of this can just create a vicious cycle which self-perpetuates. Need to do the behaviour creates a greater anxiety that fuels the need to do the behaviour. The 2 important words in the title, obsessive and compulsive, are similar in nature but manifest in different ways. Now, a person driven obsessively tends to be controlled more by their thoughts, and the person driven compulsively tends towards being controlled by their behaviours. And they're not mutually exclusive. The obsessed may not be compelled, and the compelled may not be obsessed, though a person can definitely exhibit both traits. For instance, if someone is consistently obsessing about germs and the risk of becoming ill, then the very nature of the obsession may well drive a compulsion. This may be demonstrated in constantly washing their hands or maybe avoiding touching door handles. And coming from the other side, someone who checks that they've locked the door 17 times in a particular sequence may begin to obsess about being burgled, attacked or sexually violated as a way of validating and justifying their irrational behaviour. Here are just a few common examples of obsessive thought themes and compulsive behaviour patterns. So examples of obsessing: being obsessively troubled by something you can't understand why others do not see the problem in it. To you it's so visceral and real, yet no one else seems bothered by it. You then might seek out advice, counsel or feedback from friends or family, maybe even a professional. And this attempt to validate that you are in fact right can backfire because none of the advice makes any sense and you believe it cannot be applied or made to work for you. They are just not getting it. You are the only one that sees it. No one else understands. This cycle of obsessing can intensify really quite quickly. It begins when you start to feel that these thoughts are controlling you, which intensifies the emotional association to it, maybe anxiety, anger, frustration, desperation. Then you start blaming the thoughts for the intensifying feelings and possibly the person or persons that are the focus of the thoughts. This skews the thinking even further and feeds the inner justification of being wronged. And so the cycle builds. Interesting enough, almost all of the population at some point or another will have done this process, creating an intense emotional link to an irrational mind dread or imagined meaning, then fed it to a point that it creates an anxiety-driven obsession. Learn how to cope with anxiety and let it go. Examples of being compulsed. There are lots of examples of compulsive behaviour and are part and parcel of people's everyday lives. And if they're not a problem for the person, then they're not a problem. They may seem odd or irrational to others, but they are not harming anyone, so what's the problem? When I first started driving motorbikes, and for years and many bikes after, I couldn't bear the bike being caught in the rain. This anxiety around it getting dirty and corroding caused me many a time to turn back and go home because there was a dark cloud or it started to spit. We all have our little tics, the idiosyncratic stuff that makes us happy, that makes us who we are. And most of these things, if analysed by a psychologist, could be put somewhere on the spectrum of a compulsive behaviour. It does, however, become more of a problem when it is in some way damaging to the individual. If and when it becomes so out of control where it severely limits the person's life, then you need to learn how to cope with the anxiety around that behaviour. The bottom line is, ritual is good or can be good if it is just the way that you like to do it. But ritual is bad if you need to do it, and the thought or risk of it not being able to do it causes agitation and anxiety. The most common and easy to understand example is a fear of germs, pollution and contamination. We've seen this portrayed in films and on television many times. Leonardo DiCaprio demonstrated incredibly well playing Howard Hughes in his role in The Aviator, especially how it was portrayed and where it started for him and how it can easily take hold and grow, ultimately taking over the person's life, limiting and dictating what they can and can't do. Obsessive and compulsive behaviours will always in some way appear very unusual or alien to people around the sufferer. They can never truly understand it, and because of that lack of understanding, will be of little help in offering support or advice. All anxieties can be treated, and you can easily learn how to cope with anxiety and get beyond OCD permanently. To find out more and to download my free 3 powerful tools and techniques, you can sign up and get my introduction video series.